Hey everybody, so my name is Nia Wearn. I am a producer at Dambuster, and I'm going to be talking to you about my role as a producer, a little bit about the different kind of ways we work in production, a little bit about like releasing a game and the kind of stuff that came after that, and there'll be chances for Q&A. I should warn you, there's a tiny bit of gore, which I will warn you about before I get to it as well, but I'm really desensitized to it because I work at Dambuster, and we make Dead Island 2. Come on, buttons. So I am completely desensitized now to gore, so I'll bring that up again. It's only a tiny bit. But yeah, so I'm a producer. I work with our narrative and our audio team specifically. We've got quite a big production team running behind everything in Dambuster. Dambuster itself is about 250 strong. So yeah, production team is about 15 people. So we make sure everything runs in the studio. So all of those guys, everyone else you talked to today that's in art or design, there's a producer somewhere going, have you done that task? How long have you done on that? Okay, cool. Is that done yet? So that's what I do. So before this, I'm old. I come from a time before games courses. Now, I always knew I wanted to work in games. I loved games as a child and all this kind of thing. So and I'm not kidding you, in the last century, when I was looking for courses, I knew that I'm not an artist and I'm not a programmer. And I know these two things because I've tried both those two things. And it wasn't really design or anything, and I knew I wanted to work in games. So I ended up on an interactive entertainment technology degree, which was a whole load of stuff. It was at the Stafford campus for staffs. And it was a lot of choice, a lot of different things, a lot of exposure to marketing and music and audio and some other stuff. But that was great, and I kind of knew I wanted to do more with games, so I went on straight to an MA in digital games. That was really focused, but I ended up focusing on research and writing, but we did group projects, and I ran the group projects. I made a lot of cake. I realized if you make cake for people, they work better. So my production methodology involved baking, which is a good thing. People are happier if they've got a biscuit. It's worth remembering. So yeah, I took on producer roles. The industry was really in its infancy, and especially when it didn't know what to do with graduates and things. So I actually went straight into teaching for my master's, and I spent 15 years thereabouts teaching here at the Stafford campus, and I wrote about things like narrative games and particularly audio. I did quite a lot of trying to set up an audio course. Really interested in organising events. I ran all the games jams here. I did the largest games jams in Europe, back when we used to have hundreds of people sleep overnight to make games for Global Games Jam. I ran all the group projects. I sort of did all the underpinning of how do you get different disciplines to work together, because that's game dev. All these different people sort of in and out. I ran all the social media accounts. I'm really interested in social media because it's how do you get people in different places working together, which is super useful for this hybrid world we live in now. And I got trained as a Scrum Master. I did this whole thing. I was researching, all that kind of stuff. So I did that before. That was kind of my background and my training. And then one of the things I did in all of those jobs was I helped thousands of students find their jobs in the industry. I went through all their CVs and all their portfolios, and lots of the people you're spoken to today, I kind of helped usher in, and I realized that I had never actually realized my dream of being a producer. So when the opportunity at Dambuster came up to work with the audio and narrative teams, and dialogue especially, dialogue's fascinating. How you get people to talk properly in games is great. I sort of leapt for it, and it gave me a chance to sort of do something different from teaching. So that's my background. What's really interesting at Dambuster is that lots of the producers have got different backgrounds. Some of them have got disciplined backgrounds. Some of them have got sort of corporate governance, more sort of businessy backgrounds. There's a whole range of people working, because we understand that production is a different beast from really specialized 3D skills or really specialized design skills or engine skills. It's a lot about people. And it's a lot about teamwork and getting everyone to work together in different ways, because all the people I work with work differently. The teams I work with work differently. So I've had this conversation about 3 times. People are like, so you're a producer, what do you actually do? So in a nutshell, this is kind of the stuff. I organize and unblock the creatives so they can make the game. I'm not making the game so much myself. Production is very part of the process, but I'm not sit there going, and I should also make this zombie and I should make this level. I'm making sure the specialists we have in our different departments, our weapons artists, our environment artists, our narrative, our art teams, all of those, they can make the game and they are unblocked in one way or another. I can see my fellow Dambustians going, yes, that's what we do over here. But yeah, so I work with the audio and the narrative teams. They're at different parts of the pipeline. Narrative's right at the start. They're producing stuff and making things for everyone else to base their work off. Audio's right at the end because they can't make the audio for things until the things are there to make the audio. So they're at different parts of the pipeline. That in itself is a really interesting challenge. They work in different ways. Audio is much more techy. Narrative is much more like, oh, I've got these amazing ideas and we're going to have a writer's room and sit for 4 hours and discuss these ideas. And then I need to work out how to make sure that then translates to something else. I need to know the right people in the studio to ask. So I need to know the people in the studio. I need to know what the other producers are doing. I need to know different teams and who is in what team. So I spend quite a lot of time gathering that information and holding it. So if someone goes, well, we need help with cosmetic effects, I need to know the right person in order to unblock my teams really quickly. It means I'm asking the right people questions. I need to keep my teams on track, daily stand-ups, regular meetings. So making sure that they all know what's happening, making sure that the teams, or it might be a wider stand-up one week or one day, it might be slightly different people in on a different, but making sure everyone who needs to know is aware of what's happening. So stand-ups are these 15-minute meetings at the start of the day. Like, what are you working on? Are you blocked? Are there any problems? What can I help you with? And yeah, so as a team, as production specifically, we're working on the best way to get our teams working and keep them working. And we're hybrid. I work remote from my little back bedroom. We have a lovely studio in Nottingham. It's great. It's full of snacks and fruit. So much fruit. Free fruit. It's amazing. So I've never eaten so healthy if I go to the studio. But we're getting our teams working. So these people are distributed across the place. They may not be in the same space. They may not be working in the same way. But yeah, so how do we get on with all those different elements? So yeah, we do a lot of planning ahead. Production spend a lot of time thinking ahead, not what we're doing this week, but in the next weeks and months and next year, that kind of thing. We do a lot of process planning, so how we're going to do it and how we're going to advise our teams, how we want them to work, what's going to generate the best data, what's going to help us build a picture and prove that we can make what we want to be making. I also sit on our entertainment committee, which sounds like a really trivial thing, but it's actually quite important to make sure that the team in the studio is a nice place to work. It's a good place to work. We want to keep people working. We want to keep people in our studio or working remotely. We want everyone to be part of what we do. So we do parties and team building and these things because they're quite important. Because if you're doing have a hybrid thing and you only see your team once every sort of few weeks or few months, you actually need to make sure that people are connected or else they don't work that well together. So, how I work. I have a lot of meetings in a day. So maybe 7 to 15 meetings. They're not very long. Some of them are a few minutes. Sometimes they're 15 minutes. Sometimes they're an hour. And we don't tend to do meetings more than an hour. We know people's attention spans don't work. That's fine. Production are in a lot of meetings. Our devs and the things may not be in anywhere near as many meetings, but production sit there. So I actually have physical notebooks. These are just some of them. I'm on notebook 32 in the 4 years I've worked at Dambuster because I jot down every single meeting. That's for me to remember. I use different coloured pens so I can flick through the meetings very quickly. It's not that these notes are necessarily useful to anyone else, although sometimes they are. Sometimes go, what happened in that meeting? And I'm like, well, I can skim back and go through. But it's actually so that I have got just a memory of what's happened, especially if, like I said, by meeting 15 on Tuesdays, I'm like, I don't know. They're often with the same people as well. It might just be on different subjects, but you kind of have to reset at the start of it. So it's super useful to be able to look back. And we have, meeting bots and things like that take notes. I spend a lot of time talking to people. It is, someone asked me if I was lonely working at home, and I was like, no, I am very busy. I have to spend a lot of time either reading messages, dealing with that, or then talking to people and working at this. So I'm in a lot of those meetings means I'm quite social, because you have to be on quite a lot. So it's quite nice to have a bit of gap, and I put in focus time so actually people don't get at me and I can get on and do all the admin and data and Jira tracking and Excel spreadsheets that come with the job. But I mean, everyone's passionate, everyone loves working on the games, and they love working in what we're doing, so it makes a huge thing. Occasionally I feel like a very old school connection person, because I don't want my teams to spend their time having to work out who to talk to. They talk to me and I do that. Because I don't want them spending their time trawling through the office maps or trying to work out the right person in the hierarchy who's working on something. If I don't know, I'll ask the rest of my producers. My producers, everyone else will know. So we work as this kind of central board of information. And we pass information between us. So production itself is this hub of sort of knowledge of who is working on what at that very moment in the game. And if we have something, if not, we'll go find out. And everyone, I mean, the studio is amazing. It's a really lovely, friendly studio, but it has, you know, everyone sort of QA all the way up to studio heads, and I can be dealing with any one of them on a day. So it's not that I sort of sit in one level. I've been having a chat to Rob, our studio head. I've been having a chat to Sam in QA. I could be chatting to someone else. So I have to be knowing what they do and where their remit falls and all of that and how that might affect my teams. And yeah, so it's a very social role, which often surprises people. You don't necessarily think of game dev as being sometimes the most social of things, but production particularly is very social. So I use spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. And I'm not an Excel wizard. So I work with people who are like Excel specialists. They make them do amazing things. I'm not that. But we need ways of collaborating and working with data, which again is not the thing you think about with production and game dev. Like, this is dates, tasks, budgets, it is structures, it is planning ahead, it is Gantt charts, it is, you know, actually, if we plot this out, does it make sense to another team about where our stuff might fall? So, spend a lot of time on that. We use Jira's task management. When I first started, we used Handsoft. Those may or may not be familiar terms to you. I would say that every studio works task management in a different way. So we custom built a lot of our Jira stuff. We're working on, and it gives us a chance to track what is in progress, what people are working on, how people are working. It's not about sort of penalizing, oh, you're not working too slow or anything like that. It's not. It is to make sure we just know what people are working on, if they're working on the right things, are people working on the stuff we need to all sort of work together. So I spend a lot of time asking people to update Jiras. Doesn't always work. We have Miro boards. Miro has exploded in our studio, and it's been fascinating to see the adaptation of a new tool, relatively new tool. I think especially because we're hybrid, but we use it for boards, for whiteboards, for meetings. Production stuff is running on it, social stuff runs on it. Miro boards are just proliferation, but also I'm a Miro admin. I spend a lot of my time tidying up the studio's Miro boards and making sure they're in sort of bits and pieces and make sure they make sense. We use email. Email's super interesting. So I changed, when I was an academic, I had hundreds of emails every day. I don't have that anymore, but actually we get big emails that spawn into big conversations. So one of the things we have to do is make sure the conversation is in the right place. Email doesn't necessarily work all that well. We use Mattermost, which is like our chat system behind the scenes. A lot of conversations, and what point do you turn an email into a Mattermost channel, or they need a private channel? Does it need to be public? How do you get people in? Have you got the right people in the right room to talk about what you need? That's one of those key things we keep coming back to. Who needs to know, and are they in the right place? And we use Teams. Microsoft Teams, especially with our co-dev partners and our other teams who may not be on our one chat thing. So yeah, it's quite different systems for different kind of communications. And these are the other things I kind of do. So I've mentioned stand-ups, I have syncs, I have quite a lot of one-to-ones with different directors and different leads to make sure that their needs are met, and if they might need data, they might need something else. We sometimes have little investigations we have to do to find out if we have the right information about something, or if we have, do we have these documents? Do we have something else? What did this happen? How long did this take? We do, like I said, a lot of forward planning, a lot of social chats, because hybrid, it's still a studio. These things that would happen naturally in, say, the kitchen, you've got to then facilitate somehow if you're doing stuff. We look at bugs, we triage bugs. I love bug triaging, because the only time I see the whole project, because otherwise I'm really focused on my teams. Like I said, we make tasks, we transfer files. Quite a lot of stuff has to go from one thing to another into a central point, and often run. I don't think people realize how much stuff runs through, like, this little laptop in Stafford. We have big info dump meetings. We have an all hands every month. So all this information, and quite often it's presenting stuff at those. We have progress reviews of how things are going. Reports and updates. So there's like weekly updates. Do we need to do? How do we get to people know? Because what we don't want is confusion. Confusion is a real time sink. We want to make sure everyone knows what they're doing. I spend a lot of time organising wikis. I rather foolishly said, I love an organised wiki, so suddenly that became my job, and that's fine. How do people use these? How do people use new tools? Like I said, producing and working with our PM team to do dashboards and outsourcing, and anything else that might come along. And I have two main modes of working. One is a departmental producer. So that's me working specifically with the audio and the narrative teams in my case, but other producers work with other teams. So it's running stand-ups, that's managing work allowances to make sure no one's overworked, that everyone knows what they're working on, that they're working on the right things, that they're working on the same stuff in the right, say, order that level design need or that art are working on. It's considering team makeup. So do we need to try and look at expanding? Do we look at who is working on what? It's planning work, it's producing and tracking boards. So departmentally, like I said, I work with these two teams. And then occasionally we do feature and cross-departmental production. Depends on what we need. We're quite flexible about this in production. So we might have something that spins up, which is specifically I'll talk about in a minute. And that's about keeping lines of communication open from lots of different departments and lots of different people and lots of different skills. It's managing workloads across different teams. It is collaborating with other departmental producers, because obviously then you have to have a conversation. You don't want to double task people. You want to make sure everyone knows what they're doing, and you don't want to have confusion. Like I said, confusion is a real problem. We don't want that. And yeah, so we consider the different pipelines needed. I like this quote because I think it's really relevant of game dev. No one can whistle a symphony, it takes an orchestra to play it. And I think that works, that really resonates, because you've got these specialists, these amazing artists and designers and people, and they all have their specific role to play. So, this is a production example. Now, this is a visceral gore warning. So it's, if you can see the background with the turbine and the blood splatter, that is the, it comes from our second expansion, from solo expansion. I've got a tiny GIF of it in play, because I think it demonstrates it very well. But I'm going to give people, I'll try and stop the GIF. I'll move on from the GIF pretty quickly. But I'm just going to warn people. There was a bit of visceral gore coming up. It was a question asked for me in my interview. Is she all right with visceral gore? Yes, it turns out I am. So there we go. Oh, glorious, isn't it? Yeah, I spend a lot of my life looking at stuff like that, and I'm completely and utterly immune to it. So this is our turbine, and we need to complete all the different departments that might be involved, different directions, sign off, facilitating meetings, all of this. This is what an actual meeting looks like. So this is from a turbine thing. So as the turbine producer, I had what the directors want, because we are beholden to our directors. What the directors want, they had a vision, they had some user stories, we'd worked out what the designers wanted. As a player, I want to have a lot of fun kicking zombies into a turbine. It's not a phrase you often hear in work, but we're really immune to this kind of stuff. So you have this kind of, all of these teams together, because it was a specific beat in our second expansion, in the solo expansion. So we'd already designed this whole music festival and this kind of thing, and this whole thing about these turbines, one had fallen. Naturally, Dead Island 2 is the kind of game where kicking zombies into a turbine is the way forward. But we have, so this is like anatomy of a meeting. So I've got updates from departments, so I've got sort of design. It was skipping as you hit at the counters. There was an idea about, do we want to display damage? Do we not? Do we want people to know how many zombies they should kick into a turbine or not? Like I said, I don't often get a chance to talk about these, and I don't have people to talk to about them. But we needed some testing. We needed to check what made up, what was the most fun, because this is what we're looking for. We're looking for a fun gameplay experience. Whether we needed an objective to pop up to say, clear it up, mop it up. So that's design. A lot of that falls into. We've got elements to fix or enhance. So it's like, small to medium-sized explosion skips abruptly. That's something we need to fix. That's a problem. Shouldn't be skipping. Don't want that. It's a turbine. It needs to work. And the idea was that you kicked a certain amount of zombies in, and then that triggered something that triggered a cutscene. So we had to work out where the cinematic was going to go. It worked with the level design. So it looked like it crashed. So that was a whole level design thing. Loads of stuff under the hood. My favorite is it just says Simon, who is one of our VFX specialists. Explosion needs to be bigger. Add sparks to see. So it's really like, does the explosion look good enough? We had a long conversation about how we visually represent where you are at with your zombie kicking in progress. Like, we want the player to be able to really simply know, right, oh, maybe I'm quite close to kicking in enough zombies. I've watched some videos of the turbine since, and people spend quite a lot of time kicking in zombies. Or using them. You could use one of the things and it would draw zombies to it. That was another fun thing. We tested all these to make sure it was fun. Turning a bit jiggly animation, something for them to look up. So these would be action points that would come out of a meeting. Director feedback to weave in. Like I said, we are beholden to our wondrous directors. They are great. They have an eye for the game. They're there. That we're looking at producing and generating their vision. Adamo's our art director. So he's got some feedback. So there was something on those elements. Now I know these are really incomprehensible to read. They're not for anyone. They're not for publication necessarily. These are for my notes to write up action points and things later on. So yeah, things to follow up. I've got some tasks. Adjust the turbine wobble. And then actually we needed someone from QA to make a video because it's a very different experience, static images versus video. You're trying to get something that's moving. So we needed to get a video to see how the sparks would work and whether it was wobbling and if it was jiggling correctly. So that's when we talk about production, especially feature production. If you think of anything in the games that you're playing, they will have these kind of meetings in the background where someone is working out how all that fits together, how everyone needs to work and how they make it work. So that's one of the ways I work in Dambuster. I think I'm doing all right for time. So we released I joined 4 years ago. We released Dead Island 2 April 2023. Went pretty well. Went very well, actually. We had a little party in the studio. There was merch and things. We have publishers, so they kind of produce all this stuff, and we got bunting made. So the entertainment committee were a big fan of bunting. So we produced, it was good. We hit the Metacritic we were hoping for, it was pretty positive. Worldwide release, very exciting. My mum lives in Spain, and she sent me a picture of it in Fnac in Barcelona. She's very proud. We hit 1 million sales in a weekend. It's quite exciting. Now, I particularly love this. This is the telemetry we get from inside the game. So we know exactly how many zombies we have killed and how we've killed them. So I know within a weekend, 45 million zombies sliced in half. Again, my mother is very proud, my mother-in-law less so. But yeah, so zombie limbs hanked off, all these kind of things, because we have this telemetry from running inside the game. So we sometimes access this data. So that was pretty good. We had a whole load of post-launch content. So this is, again, work from our teams, producing stuff for Twitch drops and we had a whole load of skins for our characters because our cutscenes were, we started to have third-person cutscenes come through, but also there was chances you knew that you were playing, especially if you were playing co-op, you could play with your characters. So again, all this kind of keeping it in the limelight, keeping some of these we did through Amazon, some of these we dropped, some of them were paid bundles. There was a whole different ranges that we were producing content still. We did patches. I think we did 7 or 8 patches in the end. So that also collects patch notes and all that information, pushing it out, making sure they worked, listening to the community. So where bugs came through, we'd be talking to our community teams, where what do we need to fix, what's coming up quite a lot. If we've done something that's broken something. So along with new content, there was fixing. Where's merch? I love merch. Merch and like marketing specifically. So towards the tail end of the release, I was working with our marketing teams as the producer to marketing. So it's kind of getting images, and you get these kind of like, we've just got a slot at Times Square. Can you get these assets? Okay, send these over. We're going to wrap a bus in Thailand. Can you get some assets? Okay, well, yeah, I can find those. We need stuff for a diner. Sure, what do you want? We got to send you some zombies. Great. We sorted out, this is one of my proudest moments, is we actually sorted out having collector's vinyl, and it took us months to sort that out. We did the art book, so again, collecting all that. And a lot of it's using our stuff, or using our work, and kind of making sure the relevant people had it. We did DLC releases, so we had an expansion pass, we had 2 DLCs planned. House, which was set in a sort of weird culty house. And then Solo, which was set in a big festival element. Very different feeling to them, very different sort of ideas. But again, that sort of mini production start to finish of getting all these teams working and working together and getting everything on. It was awards season. This was fun. So we didn't really win any, but we were nominated a number of times for things. I can guarantee you my mother-in-law was suddenly impressed when we were up for a BAFTA. We didn't win a BAFTA, but we were up for one, and she was very, very proud. Oh, my daughter-in-law, you know, BAFTA nominated. Thanks. And we sort of accumulated all of this with our Ultimate Edition. So we released that in October 2024. So that included another free patch. We have a sister studio, Fish Labs, over in Germany, and they've been working on content for Neighborhood Watch, which is kind of a wave-based co-op mode. We did quite a lot of checking on that, quite a lot of like some narrative tweaks and bits and pieces. But they've been working on doing ports. You know, think about ports. So you can stream our game through Luna, which I think is now Prime Gaming. We made a Mac version. Well, we didn't. Fish Labs made a Mac version for us. We had a load of other stuff, this kind of post-release content. We worked on New Game Plus, which a lot of people had asked for. So yeah, that kind of things. And all of this stuff, like I said, in like the 2 or 3 years after release, all of this working on elements. And all of the time, trying to make sure that we have a studio that is a place we want to work. Is one of our, honestly, the email that came through, we've got some zombies in a warehouse in Mansfield. Do you want them? Sure. Rob, do we need zombies? Yeah, all right. We do. We have a summer party, so we had a, because I'm on the entertainment committee, I knew ahead of time we were having a cosplay competition, which completely unconnected, my son won. So there he is, being very proud. Launch party was the last time I wore this jacket. But yeah, we team building, making sure that we're functioning as a studio, as a place that people work. It's quite a studio that people bed into. So yeah, like I said, I work on a remote contract, so I work mostly from home, so I kind of go into Nottingham every so often. I kind of say for parties and meetings and meals, maybe interviews. But we look at how we can get the studio together. We're now quite a distributed lot out and about. And we also make sure that time in the studio works. And that balance is quite an interesting one. So there's some more stuff we do. Our teams are great. They do things like running half marathons and charity bake sales. And it's charity bake sale yesterday. And just a remote person, I just get to look at the pictures and go, oh, that looks nice. There's our other pet zombies. But it's a functioning sort of workplace. You kind of remember that we look at things like learning and development. We look at how people want to do in their careers. We're kind of working on people and all that in the background. I can tell you what next. I have a line, which is working hard on the next chapter of the Dead Island saga, and that's all I can say on what we're doing. But it is, yeah, it's a functioning, breathing studio, which is doing some stuff. But that's what we do as productions. We kind of keep everything moving. So that's me, that's what we do, that's how I work. And I imagine, and if you talk to other producers, they will work in either similar or maybe not so similar ways. I am around all day for questions. Anyone who is interested, if anyone's got questions now. No one like, oh, hello. Or what do you want? How do you want, someone's going to run at you with a microphone.
Just going to test. Yeah.
Yeah, that works. Hello.
So, obviously, you didn't take the modern route into production, and I don't mean that in a nasty way at all. What would you suggest for someone looking at production now?
Well, organise things. Whatever course you're doing now, whatever you're doing now, organise things in the background. Whether that is, and be part of making games, so that understanding those pipelines are really important. Like I said, I'm not an artist, but I now know how the art pipeline works. Not a programmer, but I know how the programming pipelines work and how that feeds together. But the more stuff you can prove that you can organize with people and get that successfully run, so whether that's committees, whether that's societies, whether that's events, all of that is the training we're kind of looking for. We're looking for people who can manage other people to do things. That alongside of understanding production methodologies. So if someone says agile, you know what that means, even if you have to nod and then go Google it afterwards. So yeah, understanding production methodologies is a really big thing, but yeah, ways that people work and getting people to do things are the key things, I'd say. So.
That was great, thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Hello.
Hey.
Would you recommend looking at doing qualifications and things like Agile and Prince 2?
So I was a Scrum Master for about 2 years. I think that's how long the certificate works. I think general knowledge is better than specific expansive things, especially Prince 2 is a bit project management-y. There's quite a lot of stuff on LinkedIn Learning. If you have access to LinkedIn Learning, there's a load of really good production things. Udemy courses as well. I wouldn't be chasing the expensive, shiny certificates. But because mainly they either run out or I think everyone on my team at some point has done some Scrum Master training. We don't do Scrum in the way anyone has taught us. We all work in a slightly different way, but we've got that knowledge, but I could get that knowledge from a LinkedIn Learning course. So if someone offers it for you and you're not paying, yeah, sure. If you're having to find the money yourself, I would go, there are better routes to this.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Hi, Nia.
Hi.
Have you got any suggestions for particularly students who are getting interested in getting into production role in terms of their portfolio? Like what sort of stuff?
So this is a tricky one.
How to include that?
So this is explaining where your role is, not just this is a game I worked on, it's and I helped get it to here, or I put this in place. It's really drilling into so it's really hard, like in a way, it's really hard. I worked in Dead Island too, I definitely did, in there. But I didn't make any of these images and blood splatters and all these kind of things. But I can tell you what I did. I can tell you how I organized the people. And a lot of that is production. And we sometimes see production portfolios and they're full of outputs of spreadsheets and pie charts. And, don't get me wrong, I love a pie chart. But I need to know how that relates to what was made. So if people have got information about actually where things went wrong or how they did conflict resolution, that's an amazing, if you can talk about that in an interview, then that's a really key thing because there will be some level of conflict resolution, even if it's in a really low level. But if you can talk about how you have managed to get everyone on the same page, what you did to stop a confusion happening, that's the kind of key things you're looking for. So there's a lot more, it's a lot harder to show. I know a lot of art stuff, you're like, here is the pretty, amazing things I've done. Production is a lot more like, let me tell you about the ways I got this to work. And it's a very different skill set.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm a big fan of Dead Island 2.
Thank you.
I do know that the game went through kind of development hell, I suppose.
We get a drink every time someone says this.
Any tips on kind of surviving that
Okay.
development hell?
So, for us at Dambuster, it didn't. We did it in about 4 years. it went through 2-3 other studios before us, but we had a pretty blank slate. So when we were doing, because I was part of the press tours, when we were doing the press things, we generally had like, well, that's a shot every time someone's mentioned development hell. So in fact, we weren't, the project in its whole, but actually the iteration we had didn't really. That isn't to say we didn't, there probably were problems. At the point where I came in, everything was pretty much in place. What I think now is really we're leaning on a production team to look ahead to where there might be problems. We'd say we have like a spidey sense for when there might be an issue. And we can look at like Gantt charts and see if they don't match up. And so communication, that's the biggest thing, is making sure that everyone is communicating and no one has gone off to work in a weird silo. That helps stop issues. But also being upfront with your issues. If you think there's going to be a problem, you don't hide away. You go, I think this might be an issue. I think this might be a conflict. I think we might run into problems here. Can we put mitigations around it? We have a risk register that runs all these kind of things. So it's really been upfront about what might happen, and working as a team around how to mitigate those is how it's all working very nicely at the moment. I think I'm done. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm around all day. So lovely to chat to you.